Path of Exile 3.20 features the Forbidden Sanctum as its league mechanic. This league mechanic is unlike anything else at Path of Exile and is far more involved and complex than any of the leagues we've gotten in recent history. The only things that really pop out in my mind as being anywhere close to this would be things like Betrayal and Synthesis. Furthermore, I believe this league mechanic will be incredibly punishing for certain builds and playstyles. And I suspect that uninformed players are going to struggle a lot, while certain types of players and certain builds are going to breeze right through. So having a better idea of what we're in for prior to the start of the league is going to be crucial to having a good experience in this league. There's a lot to go over, and while the league is not out yet and we don't know everything, I'm going to cover all of the mechanics and all of the rewards that we know so far, as well as talk a bit about what I think are going to be either winning strategies or strategies to consider, and things that you need to keep in mind when planning what build you want to play in 3.20. Now, the Forbidden Sanctum's league mechanic is a roguelike, clearly heavily inspired by games like Hades. The way this works is you're going to progress through a series of rooms, and if at any point you lose the run, you will have to completely start over with a fresh run. Each map or zone you do, you'll gain the ability to enter the next room on your current floor for the Forbidden Sanctum. Now, this isn't something you're going to have to do every single map. GGG later clarified in a Twitter post that you can save up to 8 rooms, which is an entire floor's worth of rooms, and then run them all at once. So each of these floors does have 8 rooms, and the final room will be a boss fight. There's a total of 4 floors, meaning that a full complete run that you win from start to finish will be 32 rooms. Of note is that these runs are character bound, while the meta progression is account-wide. Also, you cannot swap any of the relics you have in place while you have an active run on a different character. A very important mechanic to go over is Resolve. The way roguelikes work is that you have some sort of health mechanic, and as you go through the run, you're slowly chipped down by monsters until eventually you lose and you have to start over. In Path of Exile, it doesn't really work with traditional health mechanics because you just constantly heal back up to full. You're not getting chipped down over a series of maps or something like that. So they've introduced Resolve. Resolve is an alternate health mechanic that is tracked over the course of your entire Forbidden Sanctum run. Every time you are hit by a monster or an environmental hazard, you will take some amount of resolve damage and your resolve will go down. You are extremely limited in the ways that you can recover resolve, so every single hit that you take is one hit closer to ending your run. Now, because this is extra punishing for melee builds, GG has said that if you're in melee range, you will take less resolve damage when you are hit. Furthermore, this only applies to when players are hit. Things like minions and totems or even self-inflicted damage do not reduce your resolve. Of note, resolve damage is not reduced or mitigated in any way by traditional PoE defensive mechanics. Nothing that you do will reduce or eliminate resolve damage that you take from getting hit by a mechanic. The only thing you can do is simply not get hit. Now, of note, in addition to Resolve, which appears to have a maximum of 300, there is something else called Inspiration, which acts as sort of an energy shield above your Resolve. This seems to be granted by a variety of one-time effects, and the ability to stack up Inspiration might be an incredibly important mechanic for having successful runs. Another important mechanic is the currency that you will be acquiring over the course of a run, called Aureus. These are coins that are picked up automatically like Azurite and are lost when your Sanctum run ends. You can find them in Aureus chests, which are a reward type for specific rooms, as well as random drops off of monsters. These coins can be spent at merchants for beneficial effects such as boons and relics, and there's a trade-off between spending them on boons to affect your current run or in buying relics in order to progress your meta progression across multiple runs. Each time you finish a room, you'll pick one of several options for the next room you can go into, and there are a variety of different types of rooms that they have showcased so far. The first type of room, and by far the most common, making up 40% of rooms according to Chris, is the item reward room. When you clear one of these rooms, you will have a choice of 3 options. The first is for an immediate reward that you'll get right now. The second one is for a deferred reward that you will get for clearing the boss of your current floor. And the third is for a massive reward that you will get for clearing the final boss of the entire Sanctum run. Now, obviously, picking one of the latter two will be incredibly risky because if you fail before you get there, or if you fail against the boss, you'll end up with nothing. However, if the rewards are spicy enough, I think a lot of players will be tempted to take the second or third option to stack up huge rewards that they can cash in on when they end up clearing the current floor or have a successful run. The next room type is a treasure reward room, which simply has many chests of Aureus currency. An important room is the Fountain, which will restore 25% of your maximum resolve. Afflicted fountains will restore even more, but at some kind of cost. These rooms are going to be crucial to healing up that damage that is going to slowly chip down over the course of a run. There are also merchant rooms where you can spend the Aureus you acquire on boons and relics, as well as an accursed pact room. The accursed pact room lets you choose from 3 pairs of packs. Each one will have a run-defining upside and downside. You can accept any number of these packs, whether that be 0, 1, 2, or even all 3. Finally, each floor will end with a boss room. Now, according to Chris, there are a lot of other reward rooms that they haven't shown off in the live stream, so there could be a lot more room types to discover once the actual league is live. Now, any room can be afflicted, shown by this purple outline around the room. Whenever you enter an afflicted room, you gain an affliction for the rest of the run. This will make the choice of what room to visit quite difficult, as a room you might want might penalize you for entering, incentivizing a different choice. However, there were a lot of circumstances shown in the live screen where every single room you had to choose from was an afflicted room, so on some level, afflictions seem to be unavoidable. That brings us to boons and afflictions themselves. These are buffs and debuffs that you will accrue over the course of a run. Like most roguelikes, these will be the primary factor in determining how successful a run will be. Some of your runs will be good runs where you get lots of beneficial boons, and others will be bad runs where you get almost nothing and you are penalized with absolutely back-breaking afflictions. Now, there are 2 categories of boons and afflictions, major and minor, and certain effects and certain room types will grant either major or minor effects of either. It seems that boons can be bought from merchants or acquired from packs, whereas afflictions are gained from entering afflicted rooms or penalties from accepting certain packs. Not everything is run-specific, though. Relics are a form of meta progression, which are permanently earned in runs and then placed in an altar prior to the start of a new run. These relics that you earn are account-bound and unmodifiable and modify your runs with bonuses. Your altar loadout is locked in for the entire run once you've set it up, so you cannot change your relics based on the boons you acquire. The relic items come in a variety of sizes and must be made to fit within the altar slots. This means there's a mild puzzle element to it of finding ways to have your good relics fit together. And fortunately, there is a relic locker to store your unused relics. Initially, many squares in this altar appear to be locked, and they are presumably unlocked as you progress through the story. As for the mechanics of party play, the Sanctum will always be the map's owner, and the map owner will make all choices. The owner's resolve bar is shared with party members. If anybody gets hit, then the bar goes down for everybody. In this sense, extra party members can be a liability, even if their presence might make it a lot easier to clear a room faster before anyone gets hit. So what's the carrot on a stick here for this league mechanic? Well, there is something called Sanctified Relics, which GGG says are not going to go core and are just for this league. There is a dedicated slot in the relic altar for a Sanctified Relic, and this Sanctified Relic will affect your character everywhere, not just in the Sanctum. Sanctified Relics seem to have incredibly powerful affixes that can really boost your character power. They've even showcased a corrupted one, which has a build-defining keystone in it. Getting a good one of these can enable entire builds or massively juice up the power of a build by saving you tons of passive points that can then be invested elsewhere. It's been said that the Sanctified Relics are not obtainable prior to endgame, And it should be noted that, much like regular relics, these are account bound and unmodifiable. If you want a good one, you will simply have to keep doing more and more runs until you eventually get one that's really good for your character. Now, there are a number of things which are still unknown at this time. For instance, there is a reroll button on the map screen. Does this allow you to reroll your selection of rooms? And there's something that looks like a scroll icon on the character sheet, as well as a stack of books on the map screen. It's not really clear what these do yet, but if you have the functionality to reroll rooms, that could be a crucial part of the strategy of going through the dungeon. Something else that is currently unknown is what it actually looks like when you encounter this mechanic in maps. If you aren't able to bank a room for your future runs very quickly, I can imagine a lot of very unhappy players who would just want to zoom through their maps. A big unknown as well is how rewards and difficulties scale with area level. Do your Aureus rewards increase at higher tiers, or is it better off to farm T1 maps in order to get relics early in the league? And speaking of relics, do relics have higher tiers of modifiers for doing them in higher map tiers? This goes for both the regular relics and the Sanctified Relics. It's possible that there might be really powerful modifiers on Sanctified Relics that are only available if you are running T16 versions of the Sanctum. Now, something I really need to highlight here is the risk versus reward element of this league mechanic. The punishment for failure here is extreme. You are looking at a 32 map investment in order to have a full successful run. And if at any point you're off your game a bit and get hit by a couple of attacks, that's it for you. It's all over. Your skill level and build choice are going to have a huge impact. Being able to dodge attacks that monsters throw at you is crucial to having a successful run. And if you are either unable or your build makes it incredibly difficult to do so, you're probably going to have a bad time. Based on both skill and your build, there's going to be a breakpoint here of whether or not you need boons to succeed or do not need them to succeed. Because if you need to have a lucky run in order to be successful, then you're going to have a lot fewer successes than someone whose build or skill level is so powerful that they can just truck on through and have a successful run regardless of what RNG throws at them. Of note, and this is something that I think a lot of people really aren't thinking about, is that unlike pretty much everything else in Path of Exile, this is not difficult content that you can trivialize by outgearing. Having mirror tier gear won't let you tank through an attack without taking resolve damage. You will have to still be dodging the same attacks the same way that you would dodge them, whether you're in Tier 1 maps just starting out or T16 maps with the Mage Blood. The only way you can make things easier is by killing enemies faster, thus making sure that they have less attacks to hit you with. Other than that, you are not going to reach a point where you can just run through the Sanctum and not worry about the things that monsters are doing. You are always going to have to be paying attention, and you are always going to have to be playing defensive and dodging their attacks, even if those attacks stand no threat of actually killing you in traditional Path of Exile terms. So let's talk a little bit about some strategies for handling the Sanctum. I think that early on, you're probably going to want to do some relic farming, where you focus on Aureus and merchant rooms and try to get as many relics as you can, in order to build up a powerful and cohesive strategy that you can use to farm other things. Once you are fully set up, I suspect that a lot of players are going to transition into doing a currency farm. Those item reward rooms might not look too impressive at first glance, with the live stream showcasing an 18 chaos reward as the ultimate reward, and I think a lot of players scoffed at that. But keep in mind, Chris said that these item reward rooms make up about 40% of all the rooms in the Sanctum. So if there's 32 rooms, that's 12 item reward rooms? So if you have 12 times 18, that's 216 chaos. And that's if you're just getting chaos rewards. You could also probably get things like divines or multiple divines offered there. So I think a strategy where you hit up every single currency room along your way and try to maximize the payout for having a successful run is going to be very, very profitable for the builds and players that can pull it off. Weaker builds will still be able to do a variation of this. However, they might have to skip item rewards in order to get boons or hit up fountains in order to heal some resolve damage that they took. I believe that being able to do a successful run without having to skip these item rewards is going to be crucial for making insane amounts of currency in this league. Furthermore, some of these unique boss drops off of the final boss might be incredibly powerful and valuable. So there might be an alternate strategy where you simply focus on putting yourself in a position where you are most likely to have a successful run, getting as many boons and resolve recovery as you can possible. Also, I think a lot of people are going to want to go after those Sanctified Relics, but their method of acquisition is currently unknown. I believe that it is likely to either come from generic relic sources or from boss drops for successful runs. As for relics themselves, we don't know the full range of affixes available, but we can speculate a bit based on what we've seen. I think that the Aureus gain and reduced merchant prices are going to be great for a focus on meta progression early in the league. You can then spend those Aureuses with the reduced merchant prices in order to buy more relics to set you up for other strategies in the future. Increased resolve recovery, I suspect, is going to be very strong if you have a consistent source of resolve recovery from a boon, for instance. I think that a lot of players are going to get their first successful runs by stacking resolve recovery. However, I also think this is going to have extreme variance. If you set up your relics to give you increased resolve recovery, and then you don't get a boon that gives you a source of that resolve recovery, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So while this could be very powerful, you are really making yourself very reliant on getting the right boons you need in order to succeed. Something I want to call out specifically is the inspiration gain on affliction modifier on relics. If you can stack inspiration with no cap, I suspect that this is going to be incredibly powerful for a variety of strategies. Strategies that are looking for specific rooms, such as that currency farm strategy, are going to want to be able to brush off afflictions because they're going to want to hit up every single currency room they can. Getting this extra inspiration every single time you hit up one of these affliction rooms is going to be crucial for being able to still succeed a run where you are not only sacrificing boons in order to get currency, but are also taking extra afflictions. I think that this is going to be a great pick for late game builds that want to maximize their rewards. Late game builds are really just going to zoom through and hit up every single currency room, but some amount of chip damage is going to be avoidable. And this inspiration gain will probably be enough to offset that without making them have to go hit up fountains to recover their resolve. I think that inspiration gain on affliction is going to be very popular among more skilled players, whereas some of the more casual players might struggle to make use of it. So taking a step back, let's talk about how I think this is all going to shake out. Once again, it is crucial to point out that you cannot outgear the Sanctum defensively. The only way you have to take less resolve damage is to kill the enemies faster so that they are making fewer attacks that could hit you and cause resolve damage. This means there's going to be a huge emphasis on clear speed. However, because these runs are character specific and you cannot switch characters in the middle of a run, say between a map speed clearer and a boss character, you need to be playing a build that can both clear out hordes of enemies as well as take on the bosses. I think that what this is probably going to do is that there's going to be a huge demand for boss carries, especially for the final boss. If you know that you have multiple divines deferred that you'll get if you clear the boss, you will happily pay 50C for some boss carry build to come in and instantly one-shot the boss, so that you don't have a chance to get hit by a couple mechanics and throw the entire run. I suspect that boss carry services and characters that are running them are going to be very profitable. Not only due to the extreme difficulty, but also because players can know ahead of time that there is a huge reward in it for them if they can kill the boss. Something else to note is that 32 maps to clear a full run is a lot of maps. Speed is going to be king this league. You are not going to want to be doing medium to high investment strategies where it takes you 10 minutes to clear a map. You're going to want to be doing alchemy strategies where you get in, hit up the room for your current Sanctum run, and get out. You are also going to be wanting to play a character that can run through those maps at somewhat fast speed. Now, not so fast that you can't take on bosses, because I suspect some of these bosses in the Sanctum are going to be pretty beefy. So you still have to be able to do both. But you really need to have an eye towards speed, not only for generating the rooms from clearing maps quickly, but also being able to clear out those rooms quickly so you have fewer opportunities to take resolve damage. This leads to some of the considerations that you need to have in mind when you're figuring out what build you want to play. So while I've talked a lot about the mechanics, I just want to highlight something from the stream real quick. As an example of the sort of attacks you're looking to dodge, you can see this series of ice projectiles. They spawn quickly in a huge line that spans almost the entire screen and then fire out with no gap to dodge through. The player in this footage is hit taking 30 resolve damage. That is fully 1/10 of an entire run's worth of health from a single, very difficult to dodge attack. When you are figuring out what build you want to play, this is the sort of thing you need to keep in mind, because this is the sort of attack that you're going to have to be able to consistently dodge. So for something like this, you absolutely definitely need a teleport skill. Something like shield charge simply will not cut it. Furthermore, being in melee is just going to be bad. I don't care that there was a resolve reduction for getting hit in melee. You aren't going to want to be getting hit. Even if you were taking a third of that damage that we just saw in that clip, that is still too much to have a successful run. You need to be mobile and you need to be at range so that you can avoid getting hit in the first place. Not only that, but as you can see from that footage, that attack was very quick. Skills that lock you in place for any amount of time are going to get you killed. You need to be mobile, you need to be agile, you need to be able to move, fire off attack quickly, and then go back to moving again. Like I said before, you need to be able to both clear out maps quickly and fight bosses all in the same character. Your build needs to be well-rounded. Now, something that's very important to point out is that with this huge emphasis on dodging mechanics, minions and totems stand out as being mechanically fantastic. Minion builds have long been a favorite for leagues that introduced new and unknown boss fights because you can focus entirely on doing the boss mechanics while your minions run around and kill the boss for you. Not only is the Sanctum full of new bosses and full of new mechanics, and has that advantage as well, but even once you know all the mechanics, because you cannot outgear them, being able to focus entirely on dodging them allows minions and totems to be uniquely well positioned to excel and have consistently successful runs. Personally, I'm planning to run either a minion or totem build, despite the fact that minions are not in a very good place right now, because I expect them to be so mechanically powerful for this league mechanic. That's all I've got for now, but I'd love to hear your thoughts too in the comments down below. Did you spot anything from the live stream or Q&As that I missed? And do you have any strategies or ideas that you're planning to use to make the most of this league mechanic? And in particular, do you have any ideas for really strong builds for Sanctum runs? I suspect that some builds are really going to excel while others suffer, and I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. If only to point me in the right direction for getting one of those good builds. And what do you think of the league mechanic in general? Personally, I think it looks really fun. I really like roguelikes and games like Hades and Slay the Spire in general, and having something like that in Path of Exile feels like a really natural fit. If you found this content helpful, go ahead and like and subscribe. I'm still trying to grow the channel, and every little bit really helps. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.